Welcome to Season 3, Episode 12 of the WeCOACH podcast. I'm Marci, Kornegay, Director of Membership with WeCOACH, and I'm filling in again for Megan Kahn, our CEO. As always, we'll sit down for candid conversations with women coaches, administrators, and industry influencers in the world of sports. Many thanks to our presenting partner, Hudl. They are continuing to level the playing field for women in sports, both through the technology they create and investing in programming like this podcast and the annual Breakthrough Summit. For more information on how Hudl is helping teams compete with confidence and make every moment count, visit hudl.com. Today we have a special guest joining us, but first I want to recognize our partnership with United States Marine Corps. The Marines recognize the role of coaches, educators, and mentors who inspire the fighting spirit and the battle within and share core values with our women coaching community. Our mission is to help the Marines identify high-achieving student athletes and build relationships at home in the communities of the coaches that we serve. Now I'd like to welcome today's guest, Major Christine Taranto, who serves as Logistics Officer with the 3rd Marine Regiment. Major Taranto, or she did give me permission to call her Christine, has dedicated herself to service for the past 14 years, earning 2 times the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, earning 4 times the Navy and Marine Commendation Medal, 2 times awarded Woman Athlete of the Year, and a member of the All-Marine Triathlon and All-Marine Running Team, collecting plenty of hardware, medals, and photos on the podium. I'm excited to jump into Major's story and get her perspective on the wins and losses of athlete identity, leadership, and so much more. Welcome to the WeCOACH podcast, Christine.
Thank you, Marci. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am excited to have you guys, and I'm excited about the partnership that we've got with the Marines. But most importantly, we're going to have a conversation with you, Christine Taranto, the person, and I can't wait to dive into some of the things that you've been through.
I'm very excited to be here. I'll be honest, I didn't know about WeCOACH, and when I got asked to do this podcast, I dove in your website, and it brought a little tear to my eye to see the things that you are doing with young student athletes and with women and diversity and inclusion, and it just makes my heart so very happy.
Yeah, thanks for that. I got to get a tear in my eye. I mean, it's great that we get to serve so many of the coaches that are out there that go out and shape and mold the next generation of our leadership. So, yeah, it's a great organization. I'm happy to be a part of it. But this is all about you today. And I think probably the best way to go about this is let's jump into a little bit of background. And if you've got any stories to tell, I mean, that's great too. But athletics has always been a part of your life, and particularly running. I know that you've been involved in other sports too, but how have they kind of contributed to who you are today?
Yeah, most certainly. I'll start. I just got to get it out of the way. Everything I say today is a reflection of and my thoughts on Christine Taranto and not necessarily representative of the U.S. government or United States Marine Corps. So just make sure that everybody understands that. But athletics has always been a part of my life. I think, my parents called me a water baby, and I actually grew up a swimmer for a really long time and then got into running in middle school during cross country and track. And then throughout high school, I participated in cross country, track, and swimming, and just fell in love with it. I mean, there was really no other option. I think first grade, I came home and, my dad was a high school swimmer, but I didn't know it. My mom was a dancer, and I came home with the swim team paper, and there was no other option. I was going to swim. I just wanted to be in the water. And I think growing up and being part of a team and having a schedule, it just seemed to fit my personality. And I loved being part of sports, loved being a part of a team, and loved being able to dedicate myself to a craft that, was involved with physical activity. It just seemed to fit for myself, my family, and even my little sister followed in my footsteps, wanting to swim and run, which was awesome.
But it's running that has really taken you to, a level of more elite competition. I saw where you were Pennsylvania State champion growing up, and
yes,
going on and running in school.
Yeah, no, I was in high school and I was swimming and running, and at one point in time I was doing both. I was doing indoor track and swimming in the same season, and managing a very, very busy schedule so I could participate on both teams. And at some point in time, my dad said, you're really good at swimming and you're really good at running, but they have these things called college scholarships, and those are for people that are excellent at their sport. He's like, if you're excellent at one sport, maybe you would get a college scholarship and then college would be free. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. And I just happened to choose running. And then it was fortuitous. I ended up going to the Naval Academy, which is essentially a scholarship anyway.
Let's talk about the triathlon and all marine running teams.
So I had kind of spent the first 8 years of my career being in the field, deploying, doing lots of training. And so running was there for me. It was sporadic, maybe 3 times a week or wherever I could fit it in. It wasn't a very aggressive training schedule, but that's the blessed thing about running. All you need is a pair of running shoes. And so I did it when I can, and it made me happy. And then I got to a unit where we weren't deploying and we weren't going to the field as often in the Marine Corps. And so I was running pretty much every day. I started swimming a lot. I was lifting weights. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, I'm like getting faster and I'm doing really well. And I had been winning a lot of local races. And so someone actually reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to run? Do you want to participate in the Armed Forces Triathlon? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. And I went out and I got to spend a week with a group of really amazing Marines who did the same thing as me. They are full-time Marines. They do their Marine Corps job. And in their free time, they train for triathlon because they love sport. And at that point, I was hooked. I was like, this is an amazing organization. I get to do my job, be a Marine Corps officer, and, take my love of sport. And I'm hanging out with Marines that I may have never met. And so we're brought together from all over the Corps to train together and race together. And then the running team, it just fitted naturally that I applied for that and got accepted and did that for a solid 3, 4, 5 years until my injury. But it was an amazing time. I got to do my job, and every once in a while go travel to a race, meet up with my team, and spending time with those men and women was just, it's icing on the cake when you talk about all the great opportunities the Marine Corps has given me.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 10 years. I mean, to get you, sort of where you are now, but climbing rank and also finding free time. Is there really free time?
There's no such thing as free time. At least it doesn't feel that way. But, to me, like running is a hobby. It's something that makes me happy. And so it's something that I make time for. I would say even now, I'm probably busier than I've ever been in my job in the Marine Corps. And there's still time, either early in the morning or a couple of times I will call my husband and I'll say, hey, I'm running home from work. And I'll run home from work because it's the only time I can fit in a workout. So I'm not running with the frequency I used to or the speed that I used to, but I'm still running because it brings me joy.
Yeah. So those are the insane high standards of physical fitness, mental capacity, academic achievement. That's being tough and disciplined. That's being a Marine. Did you always know that you wanted to be a Marine?
I didn't. It was really interesting. I ended up going to the Naval Academy. I didn't even have it as an option on the table. And then my dad was in the Navy, and one of his COs had kind of was like, maybe you should look into this. And so I looked into it and I applied and thankfully got in. And I was still not sure what I wanted to do when I got there. And I think it was, I went on a ship for about 3 weeks my sophomore year, and I was like, I do not like this at all. And then I started more heavily looking into the Marine Corps option, and the more Marines that I met and hung out with, and my seniors that had gone on to be Marines, you just look at a Marine Corps officer and you just see this disciplined human being, and most Marines that you meet are extremely physically fit. And I was like, they check all the blocks. That is an organization I want to be a part of. I think there's very few people that don't see a Marine and just kind of go, wow, look at those people are on another level. And to me, that was an organization at that time in my life that I was like, I want to be a part of, or I want to be worthy of being a part of. And so I worked my butt off to try and to make my application competitive, because you do have to be selected. I chose Marines, but the Marine Corps still had to select me and find me worthy, which I'm so thankful for every day.
Yeah. So what do you think is that factor that some of the best Marines have inside of them to be successful? I mean, is there a special ingredient that you just have to get through?
I think it's a mental toughness, and I definitely think it's a sense of teamwork. The Marine Corps, at the end of the day, we sometimes say we're a family, but we're a team. No Marine is going to win the war by themselves. No Marine is going to accomplish anything great by themselves. It's always about the team and how you work together. And so I think playing team sports growing up and being part of that. And then it just naturally rolls over to the team. When you meet a lot of Marines, there's so many that were high school baseball players, college wrestlers. They all played some type of sports dedicated to it. And so it just naturally flows that you go from one type of sports team into a team that is, a war-fighting organization at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I mean, you sound like a coach right there talking about their program. You mentioned a little bit earlier about an injury, but you're also talking about all this momentum of being a runner and things are going great and you're running, you're catching your PRs and great speed and really enjoying your time on various running opportunities that you had. But what kind of injury are we talking about here?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. I was kind of at the height of my Marine Corps athletic career, if you will. I had been second at the Marine Corps marathon and I had PR'd. And I just gotten to that point where people were like, you could make the Olympic trials. And I was like, man. And then the next year I ended up having food poisoning and significant heat injury and had to not finish the marathon. And I was like, man, I'm at a low point. And then after that, I kept running and I just felt this pain in my hip and it wouldn't go away. And the pain kept getting worse and worse. And then it finally got to the point where I couldn't run at all. And it took about 8 months to diagnose, but I had torn my labrum in my right hip. And so the frustrations of 8 months of not running and not having an answer. And then when it was finally diagnosed, understanding how bad it really was and that it was going to take, surgery and a significant amount of physical therapy to even get to the point where I could jog again, never mind race. And that was really difficult because at that point in time, I had gone from being Woman Athlete of the Year in 2013 and 2015. People started to kind of be like, oh, Christine Taranto, you're that runner. And so there were a lot of eggs in the Christine Taranto, the runner basket. And I kind of had drank my own Kool-Aid and was like, well, if I'm not running, what are people going to think of me? And that was a really tough time in my life where I was trying to figure out, was I even going to get to run again? Not to mention as a Marine, we have to take a physical fitness test twice a year. And so, running is part of that physical fitness test. And so I'm, not only am I not Christine Taranto, the runner, my career as a Marine officer was in jeopardy. And so that put me in a really dark place when it comes to, anxiety, depression, and things that people feel when they have something that is so much a part of them ripped away.
Yeah, let's stay on this for a minute because I think it's really important, that identity that you attach to what you do or what you believe in on a daily basis, and everything that is just attached to identity. And then not having it and waking up. And just like you said, it's like all my eggs are in this, I'm a runner basket and I'm really good at it. And people are recognizing me for it. Take us through that kind of process of that emotional understanding of what was going to be next. Obviously you had to endure the surgeries and the physical recoveries and things like that. But what was going on inside of your head?
Yeah, and I'll be 100% transparent is that when I had started performing really well, I started to have a lot of anxiety around my sports performance. And so I had started seeing a sports psychologist probably closer to 2014, 2015 timeframe and working with him. But then when the injury happened, it was kind of like all that hard work it took the edge off, but I was still in this place of dark despair. And I felt myself kind of in a haze and feeling sad, and I just didn't know what was going to motivate me in the mornings and to get me through the day, because it was like, what am I doing if I don't have running and potentially if I don't have being a Marine? And so I actually did, after a lot of suffering, my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, was like, you really need to get yourself, get some help or figure this out. Like you're hurting. And so I did some Googling and I found Heidi Armstrong in Injured Athletes Toolbox. And Heidi had been a professional mountain biker who had a severe injury during a bike accident and had lost her ability to compete professionally. And when she was going through physical therapy, she was going in the Stedman Clinic in Colorado and was sitting next to an old man and a professional NFL football player. And both of them were talking to her, and they both were experiencing the same type of like emotional pain with not being able to move and compete or, do a hobby that they loved. And it kind of clicked for her that, she had done this. And fortunately or unfortunately for Heidi, she had to have multiple surgeries and started doing the hard work, and now dedicates her life to helping other injured athletes regardless of status. And so she and I became very, very good friends. And we saw a lot of each other in the other one, and she just helped me through it and, kind of make me realize that I am not only Christine Taranto, the runner, and Christine Taranto, the Marine, but I am, Christine Taranto. I'm the dog mom, the woman that likes to read, that bakes bread, that is a great friend, that is a daughter. I'm all these things that I need to love and embrace, and that makes me whole. And, it was fantastic because even during my physical therapy, I got to a point where I wasn't even antsy about running again. I was just really happy with where I was in my life without running. And I thought that was an amazing thing to be able to get to that point. And I think that all athletes, regardless of status, whether you're a professional, whether you're a college athlete that, joins the adult world and isn't a professional, and you have to, step back from your life revolving around sport, or you're a mother runner who gets injured and, your 30-minute run in the morning is your time to yourself and you can't. I think we all suffer some type of emotional pain in addition to the physical pain. And it hits everybody, and it's important to recognize it. It's important to normalize it and understand that, you are more than your sport. You are a wonderful human being, and we all need to embrace that.
Yeah, wow, that's a wonderful way to put it. Because if you sort of put it on a spectrum, you grew up, you loved sport, you enjoyed your craft, you enjoyed the skills that you were, gifted with, and you were able to develop them and become this elite athlete. You can't compete at that level at that time, and you saw sport, at the beginning as a therapy. You enjoyed it, and then it became almost a job and your identity. And now you've been able to back away from that by asking for help. I think that sort of comes full circle, and the way that you're able to go on and live your life very full from here on out.
Yeah, most certainly. And I love the full circle because I always think about The Wedding Planner, the Jennifer Lopez movie. And she says, those who can't wed, plan. Those who can't run, coach. And that was something that, I couldn't run. So I said, well, I have a gift and I have a talent. Just because I can't use it doesn't mean I can't share it. And that's when I got involved with the local high school. And I actually started assisting with their ROTC program because they didn't have any women leadership. So I went over there and I helped out with the classes so I could, show them a female Marine. And then I also started helping coach the local high school team. The coach there was just one of the English teachers who liked to run, and she needed some assistance with the actual technical skills of coaching. And so I went over there, and we were a great team, and getting everybody from 6th graders to 12th graders to enjoy running and enjoy competing and enjoy being on a team and enjoy all those things that I loved as a young student athlete in my middle school and high school years.
What are some of the other things that you're doing?
I started a company with actually my another Marine friend who's now retired, and my coach, and we started Patriot Running. And I realize, when you're Christine Taranto, the runner, everybody wants to know what your secret is. And so, my time is worth something. So I wanted to make sure that, we did it appropriately, and people stuck to a running program. But we started Patriot Running, which is a very cheap in comparison company for coaching running and helping Marines and sailors and soldiers and airmen help with their running test. And what I see is that there's so many Marines that are like, well, I can't run like you. And I'm like, well, you don't have to run like me. You need to run like you, and so I want to coach you to your best self, not my best self. And I understand, what I saw with a lot of coaching programs is it's like, you will do X, Y, and Z. And the coach doesn't really have a good understanding of, military lives and deployments and going to the field and making sure there's still time for family and things like that. And so who better to coach other service members than another service member? And so we started this company to help people enjoy running. So maybe they'll enjoy running their physical fitness test and maybe run more than once a year during their physical fitness test. And then two, to show people that no matter what your lifestyle is, we can help you get to where you want to be with running your best self. It doesn't have to be my best self. My PFT is going to be different every year, whether I'm deploying or whether I'm, in a billet that allows me to run 5 days a week. I'm really sorry. My dog is playing with his ball. If you can hear the grunting behind me.
Oh, that's okay. What's your dog's name?
Chief.
Chief. Perfect. So with your opportunity to coach and give back from the standpoint of, I am a service member, I want to give back to other service members so that they can have confidence in their running ability. I mean, those are things in maybe let's just stay on confidence just for a second. Like, where are you in your running journey now? Are you fully recovered? Are you able to get out now and still run?
I am fully recovered. I was actually able to race an 8K about a year and a half after my surgery, which I was super thrilled about. And, it was a good race. It wasn't, anything to write home or say breaking world records, but I had gotten to that point where I was like, I can't compare myself to who I was pre-injury. So, it's kind of like I took all the PRs and I zeroed them out, and now all my PRs are post-injury. And I'm older. I've post physical therapy and post a major surgery. I'm significantly working harder at the job I'm at now. And so, sometimes if I run 4 miles a week, that's okay. And sometimes I get lucky and I can run 15 to 20 miles a week. And I'm just really happy that I get to run. And I think that's the biggest change is, when you talked about earlier about running being a job while I was on the team. And, most certainly the discipline is like, you have to run, you have to do this workout. And now every day is I get to run, I get to do this workout. And that's kind of the change in the lexicon that has really made a change in mental state. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, I hate running, I don't want to run. And I was like, yeah, but you get to run. Especially when I wasn't running and still recovering. I'm like, go run a mile for me. You know what I mean? You get to do this. You don't know what you're missing until it's taken away from you.
Yeah, you're right. What an opportunity to add more meaning to your life with the challenge of using like I get to versus I have to, especially as a mindset, because you're absolutely right. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. And I do believe those were song lyrics from 80s hair band Cinderella. So, Christine, besides running and being a hardworking Marine, what else do you like to do? Are there any other activities?
So I'm a huge reader. Everybody tells me I'm the most extroverted introvert they've ever met, but the test will tell you I'm all introverted. So reading for me is that kind of time when I spend to myself and how I draw my energy. And so I go through books voraciously. And that is just something that I really enjoy. And, my husband does as well. We can be found sitting on the couch at night, reading our books with our small French bulldog, just snorting, wanting to be petted. But that is something that we love doing together. But, I think the blessing of being stationed out here in Hawaii is that we are in the scuba diving, we're snorkeling, we're surfing. Every weekend can be spent outside. It's there's Netflix and chill on all day on a Saturday just seems like a waste of living in Hawaii. And so we love going out every weekend and exploring the island and doing different things and activities in the waters. And I had never really scubaed very much before. I didn't really surf before. And now it's every other weekend we're alternating it to try and figure out, where's the new break? Where do we want to go see the dive? Where are the fish today? And that's something that's been great because we can do it together as well.
You're making this marine thing seem pretty amazing right now. Yeah, I mean, how do you stay focused? You've got this just natural playground right there in front of you in Hawaii. But how do you maintain your focus and keeping that marine first mentality? What is that, first of all? Because I hear it a lot, especially with some of the programming that we've been able to do with the Marines. But marine first mentality. But what does it mean to you, and how you go about in your role right now?
I think it's an interesting thing because we certainly say the Marine first mentality, but I think that the mentality just comes with the class of people that the Marine Corps attracts. And so it's, everybody brings something to the fight. That's why we're a team, and that's why diversity is so important. A female Marine will have a different perspective than a male Marine. A logistician will have a different perspective than a infantry officer. And so diversity is so important when you talk about teams. And that's what makes the Marine Corps strong, is that, we want to focus on the diversity and what we bring together. And so for us, we're all there for a common goal, which is, national defense and supporting and upholding the Constitution. And I think that's kind of the Marine first mentality is, regardless of why you join the Marine Corps, we're all there for a common goal. And so that's what makes all military service so great, is that you look at it and it should be a reflection of the society of which we are here to defend. And all Americans fall behind the Constitution. And so I think, to me, that's what the Marine first mentality is that we all chose to be here. There's no draft. It was all an option. And so regardless of why you chose to be there, you chose to be a Marine. And I think there's something really special to that.
Oh, thank you. You mentioned your husband, Christine. Who else would you consider in your sphere of influence? There's people that are just your tribe, the people that you reach out to, the people that they get you, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, most certainly. I would say that my running coach, who I didn't meet until I became a member of the Marine Corps running team. I met him there, and he has since become a really wonderful and great friend. And I think he and I clicked so well because he always saw me as Christine the person and never Christine the runner. And so he certainly helps shape that identity for me and remind me that I am who I am. And that is more than just this runner. And he coaches all his athletes that way. And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful thing that you can have in a coach, is somebody that sees you as a human and not just as an athlete. And so he has definitely been a mentor and a friend. He actually coaches my husband now for triathlons and has been just a great person for us to have in our lives. And so we love him very dearly. And I certainly have a lot of Marine mentors that I have, everything from male Marines to female Marines. I think it's important to have mentors across the spectrum. You never want to be in your own echo chamber. And, I continually go back to diversity because I just feel like it's so important. And so you want to make sure that you have mentors that, aren't necessarily going to tell you yes, but at the same time will give you different perspectives, because that's what's going to make you a better person if you're willing to listen to those different perspectives. So those are all wonderful things. And I see in the notes here, you mentioned Sea Services Leadership Association. And that is also another great thing too. I believe so much in diversity and leadership and mentorship. That's a nonprofit organization for women in service. And so I chose to sit on the board for that nonprofit for 2.5 years to help kind of push their mission for, mentorship across the spectrum. And they do some really, really great things, not only for women in the service, but for men as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one in talking about how different your sphere of influence is. It's so important to have the diversity in the range of people that are in your network that you can call out to, whether it be friends or family, coworkers, colleagues, people in the industry, fellow athletes, and so on and so on. Love that. Christine, before we finish this thing up, I do want to backtrack just a little bit because you have come full circle. You're coaching now. And over the past 1.5 years or so with the pandemic, I say we, coaches and athletes alike, have experienced a lot of loss recently, whether it be loss of seasons, in some instances, unfortunately, loss of jobs, loss of budget, loss of, different things that are out of our control. As a coach, what are you saying to those student athletes that might not have another year, or those coaches that might have lost a job or don't have the budgets to continue and move forward, who are dealing with that type of loss?
Yeah, I mean, it'll seem silly in a few years, and we'll be like, remember 2020 and the crazy year that it was, but it was just 1 year. And if you're living a very full life, it is 1 year. And I think for a lot of people, if we speak specifically on running, while your organization might have been taken away, your ability to contribute or participate in that sport didn't necessarily get taken away. And I can't speak for everybody. I don't know everyone's situation. And I know a lot of people were significantly hurt by this pandemic, emotionally, physically, financially. But I think sometimes that's the nice thing about sport, is that it's there. And while we may not have had teams or may not have had jobs, we still have who we are. And so, if you're embracing the other opportunities that you have in your life, I got on the baking bread train during the pandemic, and, that became my very short-lived hobby. But I think, there are other things that you can do and participate in to help you move forward. We think about all the Olympic athletes that are struggling with what happened in, suspending the Tokyo Olympics and the things like that. And, it happens on all levels, and you have to realize that, hopefully you're not defining your life by this, and that you can embrace all the other things that you can do. I know as much as the pandemic was not a lot of fun, there were a lot of other opportunities that I found myself getting into and exploring and trying out. And so, I try to see opportunity in everything, and whether that's an opportunity to try something new or an opportunity to do something else that maybe I didn't have time for before. I think that's the best way I can put it. Certainly I can't fix the losses that people felt, but if you try and find opportunity in it, I think that's all you can really do.
Yeah, well stated. You mentioned that the discipline that you've learned has made you a better Marine. What's another piece of advice in staying tough and staying the course and staying in it?
I always think about the 1/3 rule. You're gonna, if you always have good days, how do you appreciate them? And so, the 1/3 rule is 1/3 of the time you're going to have okay days, 1/3 of the time you're going to have great days, and 1/3 of the time you're going to have really bad days. And I think those are really important. So you cherish each of those days. So if you're always having a good day, when you have a bad day, like it's okay, because it'll make you realize, like, oh, I really love my good days. So you need to really put that in perspective, that it's not always going to be rainbows and sunshines and doing well, and that the bad days are there, to not to teach you a lesson in a bad way, but to, teach you to appreciate the good days that you do have.
That's some great advice to finish up on. Christine, so we've come to the end, but we've got to finish up this session with some rapid fire questions, because that's the way we end all of our podcasts. And it's a lot of fun for us, for me, and our listeners to get to know you just a little bit better.
I am ready.
Okay. Do you have any good luck superstitions?
I know I certainly did in high school. I had to have pizza and pasta the night before every race. I certainly had a lucky pair of socks while I was racing. I think I wore them until the toes wore out, but nothing too crazy.
If you had time to just squeeze in, just some piece of time just for you, self-care, so important, what are you going to do? I know you mentioned reading. Is there anything else?
I'm going to go get a massage. I love massages, and not a tickle, a really good sports massage that is super painful. My massage therapist always laughs at me because she says men get on this table and they'll groan and moan and ache and say it hurts, and you fall asleep.
All right, so you are tough then. You're tougher than most. Okay, so Christine, there's going to be a movie made about your life, right? Who are you going to cast to play you?
I would love to cast Anna Kendrick. I won't say that I can sing as well as she can. Actually, I can't sing at all. And I want to say that I'm as witty as she is, but that's not true. But I would love to be cast as Anna Kendrick.
And that's Cups, right?
Yes.
Is that going to be like a theme song too? What's the best, you mentioned reading. So what's the best book that you've read that's really impacted your life?
So there are certainly two. There is one called Eating in the Light of the Moon. And we didn't touch on this, but I suffered from an eating disorder back in high school. And then that book was recommended to me at the age of 30. And I think I cried my way through it. And it was a book that just touched on the relationship of a woman and herself through stories. And I was one of those books where I was like, I wish I had read it many years ago, but it was given to me at that point in my life. And that book was truly a gift. And then I'll also talk about Olympic athlete from Greece, Alexi Pappas, her book, Bravey. A lot of the things that we talk about here, being transparent and your identity and setbacks. Alexi is a role model in the professional field for being transparent about her struggles and the things that she thought. And, I certainly read her book, and, I can see a lot of women going, yes, me too. I feel those things, and kind of normalizing thoughts that some people might think they have on their own. And not just for women athletes, but certainly for male athletes as well.
Sounds like two great titles there that we got to keep an eye out for. You mentioned eating disorder and some of the trials that you've been through. And I know that we are completely interrupting rapid fire here, but I feel like that is such an important thing, especially in image and self-image, and how important that is, especially as a female, growing up in sport, and also in I guess what we would call a male-dominated career as well. I mean, are those things that still carry on and sit with you in where you are now? Or are these things that you have been able to put it behind you and move on?
I don't want to say I put it behind me. I think it's helped shape who I am. Every life experience makes you who you are. And so for me, I think it's important that they've changed it. It's now called REDS, Relative Energy Deficiency Syndrome. And it's not the female athlete triad anymore. And I think that's important because these things not only affect women, but they affect men as well at all levels. And so for me, I think it's one of those things where I pay attention to it and I understand it. And so when you see young athletes that are maybe exhibiting signs or symptoms, that you can explain to them and coach them and help them out. And, for somebody that's been there, that certainly kind of helps it make it relatable. Mine was developed by no fault of my parents, no fault of my coach. It kind of happens in a lot of type A people, especially athletes. And my coach, through no fault of his own, just didn't have the education, and neither did my parents to help me out. And I had to get professional help at one point. So I think it's just important to be aware of the things that impact young people and athletes at all levels, so you can coach them through it. And that's part of being a coach, is making sure that your athletes are healthy and good people, and in addition to being successful in their sport.
Yeah, and providing those types of resources. Oh, well, you are a role model for so many, especially for the people that you're coaching, that you come in contact with, the little girls that see you doing really big things, both in sport, in life, and through your service. So thank you for being that role model.
Well, and I'll always thank the Marine Corps for the opportunities that it has given me. And now I will include introducing me to WeCOACH as part of those opportunities. Like I said, going through your website, it is an amazing organization. And I'm so glad that there are organizations like WeCOACH out there for especially women and coaches. But, at the end of the day, you're really serving all communities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for listening to today's episode, and thanks to our podcast partners, Hudl and WiSP Sports. And a special thank you to the United States Marine Corps for honoring their commitment to leverage relationships to ensure their aspirational service resonate with coaches, athletes, and their influencers. To learn more about the Marines partnership and more information on how to become an influencer, please visit WeCoachSports.org. Go to the Resources tab and click on Marines in the drop-down menu. Make sure to follow us on social media for a list of upcoming events. And again, check us out online at WeCoachSports.org to learn more about how you can be engaged in our women coaches community. As a reminder, WeCOACH is a nonprofit membership-based organization existing to support women coaches of all sports and all levels. Until next time, all sports, one voice, WeCOACH.